It's time for the shop report with
Barbershop J.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop J. I'll be your host for the day, here with another stupendous 4-point play. The subject of today's 4-point play? None other. You guessed it. Cavs, Warriors, and what I like to call the rubber match. But before I get to giving you all my 4 points on who I think will win this finally, this series, let me take a minute to address a question, or a statement, should I say, to a gentleman who said he was going to watch the video now that I had a conversation with the other day. And this was in regards to whether or not if players or pro athletes today are worth the monies that they're being paid. And to him, I say this. Forget whether or not if the athletes, pro athletes today, regardless of the sport, especially the NBA, because that's our primary focus here. You know, of course, it being the finals and still in season, the NBA and basketball and such. But every athlete, professional, who is getting paid for what it is that they're doing, or paid to play, they deserve every last cent. I would not ever dismiss what a pro athlete is getting paid. You know why? How about we take a look at the owners and what they making and start questioning whether or not if they worth what they got. Okay? Seeing how they always asking the fans to help build this and build that and pay for this and pay for that. Get what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we always discuss what players make and what players don't make and how much. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you. Y'all done heard me say this a million times. We're talking about the skill or the lack thereof. But in the today BA, if players who make $100 million can get paid $100 million for lack of effort or a little bit of effort or no effort at all, then guys like Tristan Thompson, because that's what this gentleman was talking to me about. Do y'all still think, or do I think Tristan Thompson was worth the money they gave him? Yeah, because he going to give it to you, or he going to bring it night in and night out, no matter what the case may be, okay? So, yeah, every athlete is worth the money that they getting paid, and then some, all right? Especially when you had, as you all have heard me mention before, the two Spurs owners, San Antonio, before they went to the NBA or made the jump to the NBA from the ABA, the word perpetuity, look it up. Yeah, they worth it. Now, let's get to this 4-point play. With the NBA season, for the most part, nowadays, playing out like a formality, and of course, nothing says this or says that more, or says this more than this year's playoffs or postseason. I mean, the first, second, and third rounds were a whole yawner, right? The season's most highly anticipated matchup or rematch, or what I like to call the rubber match, is finally upon us. That's right. The Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors. Who will win, you ask? I say, believe it or not, put your phones down, have a seat. It's Barbershop J talking to you. I say the Cavs win in 6. 6. That's right, 6. And here's why. Point number 1. The Cavs' Big Four. That's right, Big Four. We all know about LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. They get all the headlines when it comes to surrounding this team. I get it. That's what's happening now. But as the aforementioned, or as I just mentioned a minute ago, the Tristan Thompson, he, I believe, is the unsung hero, not only for the Cavs, but for basketball. Some people say he's a starter. Some people say he's a starter, but he's really a role player playing as a starter. At the end of the day, he brings a constant energy. Now, now, come on, y'all know I got my notes now, right? I'm not going to come to this thing and do this for y'all without my notes. He brings a constant energy and effort along with the physicality that no matter what building he playing in, you know what time it is. Extra possessions, rebounds. I mean, this dude is nonstop. And we all know when you get to this point in the playoffs, well, it should be in the playoffs, period. But again, the early rounds were paltry at best. But definitely, most definitely, at this juncture in the playoffs, matchups are key. We'll get to a little bit more about the matchups later on. And I think Tristan Thompson, just because it's the first one up, I think that Tristan is a matchup problem. Although JaVale McGee, I honestly believe, is an upgrade over Andrew Bogut for the Warriors. But down in and around that paint, no, I wouldn't bet against Tristan Thompson. Point number 2, paper champions, Golden State Warriors. Despite having bested the Cavs in 2015 for the crown, let us not forget that blowing a 3-1 lead, they blew a 3-1 lead to the Cavs in 2016 realistically means that the Dubs are only a champ on paper. I mean, you look at their roster, say championship all day long. But at times, the way these cats play, man, that's one of my biggest caveats about the Today BA. It's the way the game is being played. It seems like the fundamentals are what used to be a standard. They're like a rarity nowadays, if at all. If at all you see it. I mean, pick any player. Again, my favorite player, Kawhi Leonard. The fundamentals are always on display, but then that's just the Spurs, period. But yeah, for the most part, the fundamentals are absent. So when I say champs on paper, again, you look at the roster and you say, oh, yeah, he could do this and he could do that, because now, again, we're talking about them matchups. But when I watch them play, again, I see bad decisions, ill-advised threes. Even though you have the ability to do so, don't mean you should always do so, depending on the situation in the moment. Steph said it so much last year. He said it so much himself last year with that whole episode with him and Kevin Love towards the end. Yeah, man, I was playing too much. Well, if you know that, and by the way, Steph still is, while I think he's a dynamic player, there's some question whether or not if he's a star or superstar or all-time great or something or another. I'm not having that discussion right now. I'm just saying, because he is a turnover still waiting to happen. So if you know beforehand that you shouldn't make a play or make the play, then why make the play anyway? Get what I'm saying? Don't make no sense. So in all that, or with that being said, they still, to me, the Warriors have a lot to prove. Not to mention their cavalier approach, no pun intended, and the cocky, sometimes arrogant attitude shows up at the worst possible moments. The first time these two got together, after the fact, it was some talk about the champagne smell in the locker room. The next, the following year or whatever the case may be. I thought that was a little bit crass, but I was like, okay, gamesmanship or whatever you want to call it. But then this year, listening to Draymond Green, some cats don't need a microphone under their chin. And I'm not saying I do, but I'm definitely saying that some of them players don't, because some of the stuff that come out their mouth, and it ain't even about bulletin board material. It's about respecting your craft and your opponent. Now, you can say things. We know the media. You got media obligations or whatnot. And I'm not saying you got to be Marshawn Lynch, one of my favorite players as well. But still, understand what it is you're saying, man, and understand, too, that they're asking questions not to really understand your strategies or what your approach to the game might be, but they're looking for fodder. And I just cringe when I hear most of these dudes nowadays giving the media fodder. They don't care nothing about you as a player. State your business and go on about your way, man, and get back to what it is you came here to do. At least that's what you say you came here to do. So not only does it show up this cavalier attitude, again, no pun intended, at the worst possible times, it often lends itself to causing them to lose games that they shouldn't. Now, you can go back and look at the tape and so on and so forth and find which game and so on and so forth. I'm not going to say this or say that. But you all know, if you watch this team at all, even if it's just, if you're a Cavs fan and you watch the Warriors against the Cavs, you'll see, if you understand him, no, if you're just looking at it in terms of basketball, you'll see that these dudes, at times, how you scratching your head like, that's not even a basketball play. Okay, so it's not, and they won 73 games last year, and they one of the top heralded teams in the league. But yeah, what I see from them at times, man, it can't be. Now, they got ability and they got talent across the board. Okay, just like the sous chef or the culinary expert or whatever it is, and you a restaurant owner, and you get this guy, he said he the best, one of the best in the world, and you get this guy $1 million worth of seafood, and you come back an hour later, man, he done burnt it, he done look like flambéed hot dogs. But I thought you said you was this. Right, it's the way you do it, is my point, the way you do it. Point number 3, key additions. Now, the Warriors may have grabbed all of the headlines with the addition of Kevin Durant, that popularity thing. But the Cavs additions, they're not nothing to sneeze at. Kyle Korver, that is, Deron Williams and Derek Williams in particular, they bolster a bench that has been the least talked about this entire season, if you ask me. I'm not saying that you did, but I just said, if you ask me. Last but not least, point number 4. Defense wins chips? I say so. Even though you got to score, but defense wins chips. I know chicks dig the long ball. I'm talking about threes. But stops or chase down blocks play a pivotal role in the outcomes or the outcome of such contests. And during the season, the Cavs were, in terms of defense, team defense, ranked 22nd in total team D, or in team D in points allowed, giving up 108, which is not good. While the Warriors were second at 101 point, whatever, 0.3, whatever the case may be. So at the end of the day, whoever gets the most stops comes out on top and will be crowned this year's champion. And on that note, it's been fun, but I got to run. I appreciate y'all for listening to the Shop Report. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or email us, theshopreport365@gmail.com. And if that don't work, Google it. And remember, the next time y'all want to know what's really going on, man, come to the shop. Walk-ins are always welcome. I'm Barbershop Jay. Holla.